Yeah, I guess I didn't show any taking this apart this far, but it's been apart this far and further in the past. But I'm starting to take it apart so I can get the engine out and get it down to the frame to repaint the frame. You can see on a couple spots here I buffed this and this because these were originally shiny like that, so you can kind of see before, or I mean after. Before, after. Again, before, although I did clean that one just slightly when I washed it, I didn't polish it or anything, but that's before, after. And I buffed these on the carburetor. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is get the exhaust and the carburetors off, and then we'll get the chain off. And then I'll unbolt the engine. This just unplug the plug wires and disconnect the clutch cable. The throttle cable will be disconnected when I pull the carburetors. I think it'll just less on the engine, the easier in and out. So if the carburetor's out of there and the exhaust, and obviously the exhaust, I mean, you know, you're not going to get this pipe between the bars. And the oil filter may have to come off too to clear the frame. You can see how close it is to the bars to the engine block and how close it is back here. So there's a good chance I might have to take the oil filter off too. And once I get the engine off, I can clean it up, get it painted, then I'll take the rest of the bike apart and get the frame painted, paint that up, and then that's about all I'm going to paint is the engine and the frame. And I'm going to see if I can find a used front fender. If anyone has one, you know, let me know. I don't need these. These are good. Just the fender. And this is part of the fender, this bracket here. I'll have to order longer brake hose once I figure out the length. I see a lot of them when they add ape hangers, they don't route the cables up through here anymore. They just kind of come out from under the gas tank and up. So we'll see. If I can't get longer cables, we may end up doing that, but hopefully I can. It looks like there's a tension adjustment on the throttle here. Huh. Tension or stop or something. I don't know. We'll figure that out when we take it apart. Oh, and the electric start works every time. See this little metal pin there? If you put your thumbnail on that and do that, the electric starter works every single time. So when you push this, the whole button, it's not pushing this tight against the contact. So that plastic, may need to make something new there because I'd like to reuse these if I can. You know, I want to kind of got to watch my budget on this. I didn't pay a lot for it, but you know, the value of these isn't super astronomical. So, you know, I just gotta, the paint I already have. Got a gallon of black acrylic enamel. I got a quart of the silver from the 175 for the engine. I haven't ridden it any. Still has the same miles on it. It hasn't left the garage other than to go out and wash it. I've been riding this, and I think I just showed this the other day. I put 793 miles on this bike. I got to change the oil in it, and I have been holding off on changing the oil because I'm going to take these off to paint them, and I got to drain the oil to do that, and I'll clean the centrifugal filter when I do that. So anyway, that bike, and I had it out again since the last video, yesterday? Yesterday I think I had it out. And so anyway, let me get to the pulling things apart on this to get the engine off. I gotta pull the foot pegs. Probably have to, you know, all this is gonna come off anyway, so I don't really care if I take something off that's unnecessary because it's all coming off anyway to paint the frame. All right, I'm gonna work on getting the carbs off, get the exhaust off, and we'll go from there. And I'm not gonna video undoing the exhaust or the carburetors. You'll see it when it's apart. I got the carburetors off and I was switching this float bowl and this float bowl, and just for the heck of it I was going around because this carburetor It flooded really bad when I first turned the gas on, and one other time it did it too. Flooded so bad over, the gas was running out of this hose, and it was running across the hose between the carburetors. There's a vent hose right here. You see that black hose, which was filling this carburetor and caused it to start leaking too after this one had been dripping for a bit. These two carburetors never dripped any, only this one. It's the only one that dripped. So I took all the float bowls off. I've been going through them one by one, double checking the float level. And you can kind of see, whoops, I got this set, whoops, I keep dropping it down in there. I keep this thing set right at 22 millimeters, which is the float spec. And it's just touching the tops of, I don't know, just something just fell off, go look. But it's just touching the two tops of the floats. When I did this float, these ones were all good, they were spot on. This one, however, one of the floats was significantly different depth than the other, so I didn't, must have forgot to adjust them to make sure they're both exactly the same. Because I think if it cocks from one being higher than the other one way or the other, it can, you know, jam the float and cause it to float over. And I also had to make sure that these weren't bent out to where they would touch the edge of the float bowl. So everything seems to be good. Let me find the little, that's probably what I dropped. That's probably what I heard. The little metal thing that goes on there. Oh, it's right here. No, I didn't drop it. And but this just holds the main jet in. So the float bowl pushes on this and keeps that main jet in the port. It's the idle jet, main jet. All right, let me throw the float on, and the carburetor should be done here. This is what fell that I heard was the trim off this. This is the poster I have of the Bel Air parked in my folks' driveway. My brother's dog, she was Beagle and Husky mix. But anyway, you can see, if you look at that license plate there, yeah, they did away with those type of plates years ago, and that's when I put the authentic on it, because those were the same $35 forever, but the forever didn't last. That's the plate. These are all the plates that have been on the Bel Air since I've owned it. And now it's got a 59 authentic. All right, I can set the carburetors aside and start working on getting exhausted. So let me find a place to set these where they won't get damaged. This is the little thing that I said was broke that balances the carburetor. See how that snapped off there? These are the replacements. There's one on each carburetor. So I'm going to replace them, then I'll double check all the synchronization after I replace it, because, you know, I'll probably end up moving some of these, changing those, but, you know, it only takes a minute. And also those gas hoses, I don't know if you can see on that trailing arm right there. That's where those gas hoses, that's actually not the trailing arm. This is the trailing arm above, but that's where those hoses go through for the float bowls. So, you know, they're all kind of in the same area, so I could put a pan under it if they drip. But anyway, I put the old bad spark plug back in, so when I paint it, I don't care if I get paint on it. Let me get these bolts off and get the exhaust. I got to take the pegs off, as you can see, which is one of the bolts for the engine. And then there's a bolt here for the engine. This is for the control arm. That's for the engine. I think that one goes through for the engine. And then there's, I don't know, a couple up in here. A few. Anyway, then hopefully we'll get the engine out of here today. As I've been disassembling this, I've noticed a couple things. Well, you can see here somebody's extended the ignition switch wiring significantly. to move it up to here, because it originally would have been down here, and you can see where they joined the wires here and they joined the wires there. So they obviously added a significant amount in the wrong colors. Those are the correct colors for the ignition, but you know, it does a job. Not too worried about that. But the one thing, these are for the coils. These are the 12 volts to the coils. This is actually a ground for the, that's a ground for the horn. That's the 12 volt positive to the horn. Get them kind of untangled out of the harness. Okay, so we got the horn there. This is a main ground. The bolt for this went through there, was loose. This one was missing. The ground wires that go into the coil, one of the coil for the one, I think it's 1.4, anyway, one set of cylinders. The way these engines fires, every revolution, the points are on the other side, but every revolution of the crank, the points are driven off the crank. So every revolution of the crank, the plug sparks. To where if it's driven off the cam or distributor, it only sparks on compression. But on these engines, they spark between too. So say you have your timing set at 10 degrees before top's dead center. So 10 degrees before that piston hits the top, you know, on the crank, the spark plug sparks. And on the opposite cylinder would be on the end of the exhaust stroke, say 10 degrees before top dead center of the exhaust stroke. That spark plug sparks at the same time. So you got your power stroke and your exhaust stroke firing at the end of the exhaust stroke firing at the exact same time. So two plugs fire, then another two plugs fire. You know, you're always firing two plugs on these engines because they're driven, the points are on the crank, not the cam. But because of this ground, I bet you know, I mean, it just was so loose in there, it was almost not even connected. It's a wonder the engine ran on all four. And if I'd taken it out on the road and bounced around a little bit, yeah, that wire would have fell out and I would have lost two cylinders. So I'm kind of glad I'm, you know, taking it apart to do some paint work, because I'm finding missing bolts, bad grounds, lots of bad grounds. All these connections need to be cleaned. The wire for the coil that goes to this number one, the wire is too short and won't reach through here, and it's just, the wire needs to be replaced. And I don't know, I might have to replace the whole coil assembly. That's all available, just so that the wires are in rough shape. I mean, they're 72. And you can see that boot just continually falls off. And these things are about as stiff as can be. And I don't think they pull out of the coil to where you can replace them in the coil like you can the end. You know, the end, you can, it's got like a little thing in it there. So you can actually change the ends on the wires, the plug wires. But I don't know if you can into the coil. I don't think you can. So I might have to replace the coil. I really don't want to. Maybe I can find a used one really cheap, but we got the exhaust off too on one side, just laying right there. I'd take the foot peg off, which you can see right there, and I stuffed paper towels in the holes so nothing gets in the cylinders. So this side's all loose. All I got to do, you can see the nuts are just finger tight, and I can turn them off. They're not seized or anything. There, you can see that's loose. And this is like all the other Hondas too. It uses a pair of these on the end of the pipe to hold it into the port. And this thing just pushes it in there, and there's a copper gasket in there that it seals on. So these are all, you know, no different. And I'm going to fix these and polish these pipes up nice now. But see how they're rusty here? I have to fix that so it doesn't look bad. But these were chromed. But this is a lot of porous casting that's chrome. I think I'm just going to get some high heat silver and paint them, and then clean the paint off these chrome edges so that it shines. And I think they'll look fine. Give the pipes a nice polish up, and they should look good. Well, let me get I got to get the foot brake off. I'm going to finish taking the wiring harness off too. Get that out of the way. It's all got to come off. But I got to take the foot brake off to get this exhaust. This is all loose too. That's just on there finger tight. But the exhaust is not coming off until this is off. So that's what we're going to work on next. Get that spring off, bolt out, and we'll get the foot brake off. No big deal. And it looks like this was not painted either, so I'll clean the top of that's where the cam chain is. I'll clean that up too. Yep, it looks like I'm going to be straightening up some wiring here. I have no idea what this mess is here. But we'll, you know, you can see butt connectors. And I hate butt connectors. This isn't even a good connection. Yeah, butt connectors should be illegal. I'm going to solder and shrink wrap them when I put it back together, but I got to make note of what color. So that's going to like a light blue. And that one's going to a red. Solid. I don't see any tracer on it. It's just solid red, I think. Yeah, it looks like just a solid red. So I'll write on the wire what color is going to what. Hope that it doesn't come off. And I'm gonna, because I'm disconnecting all this, I'm gonna unplug this and get this out of here, and you know, get the more stuff that's out of here before I take the engine out, the easier that I'll be able to reach around and want to reuse these, clean them up and reuse them, these things here. So that's why I kind of take them off carefully. That gets the complete wiring harness out of the way. This is just a breather hose. That just goes out the bottom there. That's all that is. And I don't know if there's a guide for that. There's definitely guides for the float and the battery, float bowls and the battery, but being just a breather hose, I don't know if that has a spot for it or not. All right, I got to get this cover off, get the clutch cable and chain off. That's next. Like I say, all the wiring, I just kind of, most of the connections are in the headlights, so I have to take that out to get the harness completely off. But it's just all hanging here. And I got to get it off anyway and out of the bars, because I'm putting a set of ape hanger bars that are sitting right here. If you haven't been watching my videos, because that'll match with the sissy bar and the seat and everything. So let me, and I'm going to see if I can get new caps for these fork tubes. These things are really rough. I can't imagine that'll be too much. I think I'm going to take the key out so it doesn't get broke off. And, all right, let me get the clutch cover, or the chain cover off. As you can see, I took the chain guard off too. I mean, it's all coming apart because I'm painting the frame. And I loosened up the chain, take the cotter pin out, loosen this up, back these off. You tighten these evenly. You don't want the wheel cocked. There's little marks on there. I'll show you when I put it back together. There's a master link right here. And I'm going to take that off, get the chain off, and I got the tack cable off. I think all I got to do is unbolt these and knock these out, and the engine's off. I mean, wiring's all unplugged, breather hose. I might take I'll leave it on so nothing gets down in there. But I did put a paper towel or doily or whatever in the tack cable input so nothing gets in there. That's got a seal in here so it doesn't leak oil out. But I just figured, you know, put something in it anyway. All right, let me get the chain off and finish unbolting the motor, and I think the motor's ready to lift out. I might try and buff this up, maybe hit it with some sandpaper first, sand it out and buff it. I think it would look nice if it was polished up like chrome, so we might do that, and this will polish up like chrome. And I think once everything's painted up and everything's buffed up like this, and the frame is painted, You know, I mean, look at that. Yeah, it needs it. Might even see if I have better bolts for here. I think I do, because I have a ton of these metric Honda bolts from other bikes I've done in the past. And, you know, sometimes when I get something that's just parts, you know, I save the parts, because you never know when you're going to need a fastener or something, right? And these are all metric with their own little special markings and whatnot. All right, let me get the chain off and we'll get moving here. Have a look here. There's a master link there and a master link there, plus the one I took out. So we'll get a new chain. The chain doesn't look too bad, but I don't want a bunch of master links. So probably get a new one and probably get an O-ring chain. And another thing too is the wheel needs to be balanced. So I'll find some, they make little lead weights you can clamp on the spokes, I think, and yeah, it's there, it's all right, but there it's not. So we'll see if we can balance that a little bit before we start riding it. Okay, let me finish unbolting the engine, and this is all loose, this is loose. I gotta loosen these up and hopefully the engine comes out. Yeah, if that oil filter has to come off to get it out, I guess I'll be draining the sump too, because, you know, I don't want to get oil everywhere in the garage. So let me get this unbolted and see if that'll maybe tilt up. I don't know. We'll finagle around with it, and if it doesn't come out, I'll just set it back in place and pull the filter and drain the sump. This thing's just setting in here, as you, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's all completely unbolted from the frame. There's no way it's going to come out of there with the oil filter on. So I'm going to take the oil filter, drain the sump, and take the oil filter off. And then when I paint it, I'll paint it with that off. See, I already painted that. It's going to be a nice match. And, you know, when I paint all this, and then I can tip the engine upside down to clean the underneath. I don't have to worry about the oil, you know, running up into the cylinders or out or wherever. So that's why I'm going to drain the oil. And it's just, I can put the engine in any position I want once it's out to, you know, because I got to clean this thing up before I can paint it and sand this stuff. You know, the paint's not going to stick if I just blow paint on it. I got to do a lot of cleaning on it and prepping it to get it ready for paint. This oil only has about 15, maybe 20 minutes of run time on it. I haven't run the engine much, but it'll flush it out. Yeah, it's not bad. It's kind of coming out clean looking. It looks bad in the pan, but no, it's, you can see through it, so it's not that bad. All right, I'm going to let that drain, then I'll get the filter off and we'll go from there. I thought I would just show what's going on. I forgot to video this. Martin came over yesterday. He's the one with the gold 59 Bel Air. But he came over yesterday and helped me lift the engine out of the frame of the bike. And the engine had to come out this way. It would hit this, preventing it from going that way. So anyway, yeah, this is the side it has to go in and out on. And I think I'll start cleaning the engine. As you can, I drained the fluids out of it so I can turn it right upside down, but you can see it needs some serious cleaning and prep work before paint. So I can do that now while the engine's out, and I can get the rest of the bike apart down to the frame, which won't be much more work, so I can paint the frame and the trailing arm and all the little bits and pieces and brackets and whatnot and make it look pretty. I'm just kind of cleaning some of the dirt and crud off the engine, and I'm not going to bore you with just sitting here with a putty knife or a screwdriver scraping stuff for a couple hours, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of get the heavy stuff off, and then I'll go through with a rag and some lacquer thinner and clean the lighter stuff off. And then when I'm done doing that, I have a blowgun that actually is suction. I'll show you. Let me find it here. let's see here, right here. Get it out because I'm going to be using it. Oops, too much stuff here. All right, so what this does is you put this down into your solvent that you want to use, and then you hook your air hose up here and you squeeze it and it siphons it out and blows it out here so you can really clean it up. So I'll do my final cleanup with lacquer thinner with that before I start priming. But in the meantime, I want to get it scraped down, wiped down the best I can. Probably be taking this cover off the paint that the clutch is on. I've already had it off once because, as you remember, the clutch was stuck and I took the clutch all apart. And this all needs a good, I need to clean up in here too. And so we'll get it all kind of cleaned up to where it looks halfway nice, and then we'll go from there. I think that this thing's gonna look good when done. Yeah, I'm happy with it. Didn't drip any oil on the floor, so I don't think it has any oil leaks. So anyway, I'm not gonna reseal it or anything. I might put a new gasket on here, a new seal in there, but maybe. We'll see. If they're inexpensive, like I say, I'm not gonna put a huge ton of money into this bike. I didn't pay a lot for it, and I just want to kind of make it a fun old vintage rider that looks respectable. So I'm just gonna, try and do it up to where, can be a rider, not just sit and look at bike. Well, let me get to work here, and like I say, I'm not gonna bore you with a bunch of scraping and cleaning. A little bit of fuss and it cleaned up. I took a little paint cap with some lacquer thinner, a little soldering paste brush, and a screwdriver and some rags, and just kind of went around and cleaned all that up pretty darn nice. And it's still got the sump and all this stuff to clean up in here, but that's a start, and I'm happy with the way it looks. Everything's looking good here. It's got a 17 tooth sprocket is what it stamps, so if you're interested in what the primary sprocket is, that's what it appears to be. One other thing too with the exhaust, these things here are really rusty in there where the chrome casting was just rough and never smoothed out to be chromed, and I just want to make them look neater, so I am going to clean them up. A little wire wheel in between there. I don't want to damage the chrome here. The reason why is I thought I'd do it up like this, so I'm going to cover that over, but I just missed it on a light coat of, doesn't even go through. You can still see the chrome. Just wanted to kind of see what it looked like, but I think that'll look nice with that. That's high heat black, and then I cleaned the paint off the chrome, so as opposed to looking like that, or and if I just wire wheel cleaned it with my Dremel, it's just going to look like that again in short order. So I need to put something on it to protect it, and I think that'll look good. And another thing too on these pipes, they're really discolored, as you can see. So I took it over on my buffer, and that discoloration buffs right out. So hopefully I'll be able to get those back to looking totally chrome again. And the front fender, I haven't found a good used one yet. New ones are quite expensive, so if I can't find a good used one, I might bump this out and paint it. Maybe paint it white to match the headlight, or I don't know, or black. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think this chrome is going to look good bumped out. You'll see it. So anyway, I'm going to take it off, take the fender off today, because somebody has one advertised locally used, and I might go see if it's the same as this. If it is, I'll take it with me. If it is, I'll be getting a decent used fender. It's a smaller bike that he's parting out, and I don't know if the fender is the same size or not, but we're going to find out. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is remove that fender, and then we're going to start on that, cleaning that up. But anyway, I'm going to end the video here. So if you liked it, definitely hit that thumbs up icon. It helps me out. If you like my channel, that 348 engine icon will help you subscribe. And thank you for watching my video.